Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, May the 28th, Memorial Day in the United States. I don't believe it's Memorial Day anywhere else, but people in the comments could let me know about that. We're already on the European account, and because it's Memorial Day, there's not a ton of news. There wasn't a ton of news in the weekend. I potentially made a mistake by filtering out a lot of garbage games. We need to play Paladin and Priest right now, then we're going to go to Druid class cards. I probably could have ranted about some garbage games that I just decided to close this weekend. That has left me with fewer games to cover, but also I'm going pretty slow, so I imagine we may still very easily get 3 45-minute recordings, this being the second one. Gemetsu has an article, Waku Sweets Amai Okeshi Ge Dekeru Kana has been announced for Switch, due out this summer in Japan, and so that translates, and thank goodness that every now and then at least they translate the names of these Japanese games to Waka Sweets : can you make delicious sweets for the Switch. Hello? And it has a screen of an anime girl baker holding a very fancy looking strawberry cake, or maybe strawberry topped cheesecake.
The light dims, but we fight.
So I imagine this is a it is a cook so delicious type game, except for specifically focused around the Japanese sweets, which they certainly do love their sweets, but pretty much everybody does. They just have a special Japanese side. So it says down here you'll try, take the challenge of making various sweets including cake, macaroons, and Japanese sweets, and play games while enjoying learning how to make the sweets. It might even be a cooking game where you are specifically actually learning how to cook. This does have an anime girl on it, but let's always remember not every anime girl is a large-breasted, scantily clad anime girl, so this, she's fully clothed and appropriately dressed. On the trailer site, and I cannot instantly figure out what to play to what is clickable here. Well, that one. It's all in Japanese, so I can't figure out how.
Your magic shall not save you.
Yeah, if there's some kind of trailer or video to play, it's like just click everywhere. Yeah, if there's something on the screen, I can't read it, so I can't find it. But is this going to come to the West? I could see it getting translated and coming to the West. It's kid friendly. It's basically just a cooking thing. There, I played down the water. Yeah, if I had played this, they played this, and this probably would have killed both of them. It's probably going to be an eShop game if it does get translated to the West. I don't think you really need to translate Japanese sweets as anything new. We don't need to turn sushi rolls into donuts like the Pokemon cartoon did in the old days. And for the most part, I think you're probably higher than 50% that most people around the world would like Japanese sweets. Sometimes they do use red bean paste, and for a very long time Japan didn't have sugar, so they were sweetening things using some odd tastes, and they eat a lot of fish, obviously, so their taste buds are sometimes accustomed to flavors that people in the United States in particular probably wouldn't be accustomed to, and so there is a chance that you will bite into something expecting something completely different, or just getting a flavor that you can't identify or just don't like. We have a game on Steam called Stickman.io, so it's trying to be like Agro.io or itch.io, but it's on Steam, and it's a Stickman game, and I haven't had to bring up my policy against not recommending Stickman games for a while. Inherently, if you're making a Stickman game, you're probably, with a few exceptions, you're probably making a very low effort game. This one is 40% off for $2.39, and no reviews in my language. One negative review that just has a bunch of parts. Let's see. Low effort, very low effort game, so what we've seen a lot of. Next we have a game called Paper Dolls. Apparently Paper Dolls is a first-person VR horror game with oriental features, exploring ancient ruins in the late Qing Dynasty, and search for your daughter. Complete story goes through the whole game, which lasts approximately 15 hours. Essentially old hidden truth way to your discovery. So a 15-hour VR game almost certainly has to have hard breakpoints at some place. It says it's an indie action adventure survival horror VR game, and
report for justice.
The thing that's going on here, though, is this trailer. I will say the graphics don't look great, and I question, like, that's not the right thing to say here. The graphics do look good, rather good, but they don't look like AAA hyper-realistic graphics. They look like just ever so slightly a step down. If you were watching really good graphics, but then you had it at like a sub 720p resolution, and so I kind of wonder, when you have that, what does that look like or feel like in VR when you can get something really close to your hands? Speaking of, or your eyes. Speaking of hands, I was looking at a picture of hands. The hands from the controller are actual human skin tone hands with which are just kind of cut off at the past the wrist. They're not bleedingly cut off, they're just kind of fuzzy and blurred, which adds a level of reality, but then also kind of loses that reality. I think they should probably add arms to it and just have arms connect to your body at some point. It says 29 Steam achievements. It's 12% off for $26.34. So they're really going for a 15-hour experience at half the $60 price. I think you'll definitely see people cover this game. There's 3 positive reviews right now, all in Japanese, it seems, which or Chinese, which I assume that that means something. It has to actually be Chinese because it is only in simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese. So, but I also have to applaud this game for being a Chinese game that isn't a cheap Chinese effort, or at the very least, in its presentation, it's not a cheap Chinese effort. It seems like it's a real game, and if I had a VR system, I would recommend this, and so I'd recommend it to people with VR for now. In fact, I think I'll even wishlist this, and maybe that's what my follow list will start becoming, is follow VR games, and if the VR games turn out to be if I ever get a VR system and they're still good by the time I get that system, then I'll play that. Borderlands retweeted somebody who drew a different art style of all the main female characters in Borderlands, which is great and all. It's certainly such a different art style. It kind of feels like looking at one of those Cartoon Network reboots of a series with a completely different animation style. I could totally see these characters in a Cartoon Network series being silly. Not really much to talk about that. Let's see. Let's do this.
The light dims, but we fight.
And then here, and here. PC Gamer has an article. The hellish horror game Agony will be slightly toned down, and the uncensored patch plan has been dropped. So, Censored Gaming did an article sort of related to this, but it was more about why there are basically no adults-only games. M for mature is ages 17 plus. Adults only is simply 18 plus. So it's a insignificant number, really. Like, I don't think you get too many parents out there that says, well, my 18-year-old can do this, but my 17-year-old can't. With maybe the exception of the fact that they tell an 18-year-old you can't drink alcohol or move out of the house or do something that they don't want them to do anyways at early ages, or maybe ever. You might, as a parent, go, well, you're 17, you have to wait till you're 18, but you're crossing your fingers that by the time they're 18, they're more mature and won't want to do that thing. But in reality, if a kid was 17 years old and you saw the content from an 18-year-old labeled content, you really wouldn't care. Let's face it, most parents wouldn't be too upset if a kid accidentally walked in a room, even at 14 or 15, saw a side boob and then was quickly shuffled out of there. You'd just be like, oops, we didn't intend for that to happen. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't severely traumatize your average 14-year-old. These guidelines have always been guidelines for parents, and parents know their kids best. There certainly probably are some very immature 18-year-olds that shouldn't be playing adult-only game. But anyways, that was what Censored Gaming's video was about, is just why there are no adults-only games anywhere. And the basic is Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony have all said there will never be any adults-only games, in so many words. I think, frankly, some of them wiggled around it and said that they personally don't publish those games, but if another publisher wanted to do that, they might be willing to do it, was slightly the implication. But no publisher that's a big publisher wants to do it either, because the adults only label is so offensive. It's literally just a label there to be a replacement for the X or triple X rating. It's something that if you get that, you're never going to be seen anywhere. And the same is true for movie theaters. Movie theaters will not air, any chain movie theater will not air a movie that is NC-17. So all this time, Agony has been pushing itself and promoting itself as it's going to be hyper violent, major amounts of nudity, major amounts of blood, major amounts of demons and magic and all of those things. And that's what it's been getting its advertisement on, and it's been way too much advertisement, frankly. Let's play Druid class cards now. They've been building a hype train on the fact that this is not going to hold back any punches. And apparently, in an initial pass to be rated by the ESRB, which, I mean, I'm not even sure. There's an inherent dishonesty here with the developers of Agony. They should have never even bothered to get an ESRB rating. They should have known and never even bothered to say that this game was not going to come out on consoles. They should have been a PC-only game that was pushing its luck, I would say, to be even on Steam. And so there's this diverging paths here. They from the beginning wanted to make money with this. They from the beginning was saying this was kind of a Bioshock-esque gameplay with shock values, and this has worked in the past when you have games like Dante's Inferno and Condemned was another one. I would say there was several games in the past that have gone to shock value. God of War was built around a lot of shock value, but I think in the current climate they probably misjudged how much the ESRB was going to be a little bit more conservative these days. And so ESRB told them you're going to get adults only, and so you have to cut back and tone down stuff. And I'm not sure what they can really even tone down to even get it to an M for mature. Was it the latest trailer where we saw the main bad girl, the goddess of the land, just giving birth to babies and throwing them away to get eaten? Probably. That would probably be one of the red flags, but if it starts going into a general atmosphere and there's just too much blood and there's just too much demons, and I have, in almost every instance I've talked about Agony, said there is just a ridiculousness in its artistic design that one of the main enemies in the game is this demon that does not look human at all in the face or the legs or the arms, but it has 100% human flesh breasts. It's a gratuitousness just outside of
this jungle hides many secrets.
Trying to really tell a legitimate story. There's also, I think, some crucifixions and crosses that we see, so that may have been a problem too. Let's see. It seems like this isn't even the ESRB that's giving them trouble, which is not surprising actually, because the ESRB really doesn't care, and they probably would give an M for rating. It's the PEGI the pan-European game information that's giving them trouble. Which, when you think about it that way, then why don't they just well, I'm not going to make suggestions here. I'm going to just say you know that they're not willing to give up selling the game in sales in the European market, which is that. Reading this article more, it says the censorship now affects only several seconds from 2 endings out of 7, and some scenes may be unlocked only after and some scenes that may be unlocked only after the end of the game. None of the scenes you have seen in the trailers or other promotional materials have been censored at all, and the game will feature those on all platforms. And see, I figure I'm not sure I really believe them. Honestly, because I'm not sure I really trust or believe anything this developer is saying.
Try one.
I don't know if I really even have a reason why I'm coming off of this feeling, but it does feel like they lied in their commitment to their artistic vision. And this is inherently always the case with video game companies, and is that when you mix a product that is to be sold, particularly a product unlike a painting that has to be sold to the mainstream in many copies, artistic vision does go
By the elements combined.
like it does. Let's see. Go in a different direction. Make me feel like they're more interested in making money than they were to staying true to an artistic vision, which I'm not sure they really ever had an artistic vision in the first place. This also feels very much like pandering. The article goes further. The studio has even posted a helpful list of features you can look forward to the game, and the features are gore, brutal sex scenes, lesbian and gay sex scenes, genital physics, eye gouging, heart plucking, children's heads exploding, setting fires to martyrs and demons, intense violence, strong language, and drugs. And so if it has drugs, then that seems like that is probably going to get banned in Australia too, and so we may very well have a second censor pass as soon as they start applying to sell the game in Australia. And they're claiming unspecified legal issues has caused them to drop plans to remove the censorship from the PC version of the game. Instead, it will publish a comparison video on May 3rd, so you will not miss out on anything. A statement that intentionally or not really highlights how much of the where much of the interest in Agony really lies. I think that's an unfair editorialization for PC Gamer to make, considering PC Gamer in particular has been hyping up the game 100% around the sex and nudity and violence. In fact, there's really nothing else in the game that is even interesting when you leave that alone. When you ignore that content. Let's see. Here's a quote. Please bear in mind that leaving the content uncensored would result in the game being banned and us, Mad Mind Studio, being sued. The message says, so apparently the publisher has them under a contract, is what they're claiming, that won't let them A, cancel the game, or B, not release the game, or C, release an uncensored patch. That would simply lead to the studio being closed. Obviously, we don't want this to happen, and we hope you understand. I half suspect that Agony doesn't ever come out. Like, But this is not the ESRB adults only anyways, it's Peggy, Peggy 18 plus, whatever the Peggy system is. So there's some misunderstanding of the situation, it seems, according to how PC Gamer is reporting it. Now, optional patches really could come from other people, certainly. If it really is just a couple of scenes that are being edited out and it's pre-rendered cutscenes that was the only thing they needed to change, then the optional patches kind of don't even seem like they would have needed to happen. It would have been easier to, from the word go, say, well, these are just cutscenes, so we'll just put an uncensored video up and then somebody else can replace those videos. Inherently, I guess Agony would probably be a game I couldn't play on Steam, on YouTube anyways. But also, I'm not sure I really wanted to play it. Like, this probably is gonna be one of those games where a lot of people stream it on Twitch, a lot of people get in trouble for streaming it on Twitch, and then, or streaming it on YouTube, and that's kind of all of it is. And in the meanwhile, while this is news, there's been so much not news talked about Agony that we're in a weird position too, where I kind of don't want to report on it because it's already been overexposed, but I kind of need to report on it because this time it actually is important information. We've got a game on Steam called Disc Golf VR. It doesn't look great. Basically, asset flips, MS Paint. A disc golf game in VR is not a bad idea, and in fairness, Disc Golf VR is a free game, so if you have VR, I'd recommend trying it. Only thing it's going to cost you is a download. It says it's early access, but if this ever became even 50 cents, I wouldn't pay for it. There probably is, well, there's at least a decent chance that there already is a better version of a disc golf game in VR. Let's see, we already talked about that article. Why was that page not closed? That was the exact same page. And my plugin is supposed to stop things like that from happening. So next game we have on Steam is called Prosperity. It says it's an early access simulation strategy indie casual game, and it looks certainly like it's a spreadsheet game. There's nothing here as far as graphics, with the exception of a background picture. It says it's early access, $9.99, and 2 suspicious positive reviews.
I wonder.
Like, there's really nothing to even say about this game. It's the first game from this developer. It's way too priced. It's way too expensive.
My will is not my own.
Aluth Neladar.
It's just nothing interesting visually at all. Moving on, we have a game called Kingdom Watcher, early access indie sports strategy VR game. It, to me, looks like it might be a tower defense game. The graphics, yes it is. Graphics and VR, we've seen a lot worse. I'm seeing a dice, so there's something to that element too. And you use an archery element to shoot and make selections as far as adding more towers. But yeah, this is just a VR version of a tower defense game. which makes no sense. I'll do that. Now that one is fully powered up.
I have no choice.
Early access game 15% off for $2.54. It is cartoony and pretty, but maybe those two are flipped assets, and it's a tower defense game in VR, which doesn't make sense. Seems like at some point there's a mode or something where you shoot other towers and archers on top of other towers. I don't think we're gonna have a ton of things to say today. I kind of knew that already, though. Let's see. Still here.
I have no choice.
And in the turn. Next game we have is called Tiny Rails.
Onward,
It's...
friends, to adventure.
I don't know. The graphics are kind of closer to a 16-bit graphics, like flat 2D things. It's some kind of simulation where you're running a train, and there's all kinds of different trains that you can run, and it kind of has a Stardew Valley, if you were in charge of running a train, appearance. But it also kind of feels like it's more of a clicker game where you're just unlocking new trains. The pixel graphics is part of the problem. They sell that like it's a good thing, and it's totally not. Let's see if I did this. And then do this. Just go ahead and do this.
For the wild.
Kill this guy. Attack you. $9.99 for Tiny Rails. It's got some presentation. It's got a considerable amount of positive reviews, like 159 positive reviews and 29 negative reviews. That's one not recommended.
I appreciate your efforts.
First not recommended review says, as with most mobile ports on Steam, the devs have seemingly abandoned it despite its supposedly being early access. When the mobile version gets constantly updated but the PC hasn't seen an update in half a year, you know that it's just a pathetic money grab. So this is a cell phone port. I guess I could have seen that. It says it's not in early access anymore, but and that it, like, I don't even know why I saw this game then, because it says it came out a year ago.
Where shall I strike?
Play. And then 1 plus 1 plus 1. Okay. Well, it's kind of an unfair system I have, but there's so many games on Steam, you kind of have to have an unfair system. To have one negative review sway you away from a game, but it's right. Let's see. Tiny Rails Update 2.0. We're delighted to bring you such a large update today as we leave early access. We've heard your feedback and are excited to bring you duplicate cards. Highlights: explore new regions, Alaska and Oceania, play the new limited time event, Cargo Rush, major bug fixes, and optimizations. And then comments on this update thing says, Some things have changed. For example, when you arrive at a station, new regions also there for me, but using the same card twice doesn't work. Glad to see this update. I would help to see the whole changelog. Wonders do happen. It's great to get an update after all this time, but how about some release notes to explain the new changes in more detail? For example, where can we see our players level and how do we level it up? Do we need to restart the game? My game crashes when I try to continue my game. Anyone else have that problem? Hopefully the extreme grinding also has an end. Played 40 hours, but this game, but the end game is to buy 5 items here, 4 items there to get a total of 150 items of one kind. I've stopped playing the game because of that. Hopefully it's also been fixed. Okay, so Tiny Rails apparently did update, and so the negative criticism isn't as valid, but it took them forever to update, and it is still just a mobile port. And I was close to getting this, but it does look like it's a really, really grindy game. And if you were going to play Tiny Rails, I'd say play it on PC. I mean cell phone, don't play it on PC. Next game we have is called Black Bart. Let's see, what did I just do? Let's see, it's an adventure indie casual game. I'm not sure what kind of game it is, though. It looks more like a point-and-click adventure.
Beetleberries, my favorite.
It's got a dice mini game and a gold panning mini game. And the animation style is a heavily thick inked background animation style that you would expect from somebody who is painting with like watercolors or oils. It's not a great artistic style in my opinion. To do it right, you have to really understand angles and detail, because you're painting with a very wide brush, and when you paint with a very wide brush, or you're digitally painting with a very wide brush in this case, any mistake gets over accentuated. Like, these people don't really have fingers, they don't really have hands in most of the pictures, because you just cannot do that level of detail. Black Bart is 10% off for $2.69, and I'm still not sure. Let's see, it says it's a text quest story that gradually unfolds with mini games, so it does kind of just feel like that. It has 6 positive and 0 negative reviews, but the first positive review is written in like Russian and English. Let's see, what languages is this? Yes, English, Russian, and Ukrainian.
What to do?
So it's an interesting question whether a Ukrainian developer would ever actually bother to translate their games into Russian, since Russia is attempting to take control of Ukraine. This is the only game from this developer. So we have a questionable interface, a slightly interesting Western themed game, is set in the American Civil War like time frame, because I'm seeing a picture of the wrong United States flag from the time period. So I don't know if this is some kind of fake news game or if it's just a really weird attempt to talk about something that's really not in your purview. if you're a Ukrainian developer or Russian developer or what.
Try one.
Like, I don't see anything inherently offensive about this game, I just don't also see anything interesting about it, so I'm gonna ignore Black Bart and close that. Maybe it's important to say Black Bart looked like a character with white skin. That might be relevant, considering it was set in that time frame, Civil War time frame. Let's see. We got somebody that wants to 1v1 me. Maybe in a second. Let's not mind playing people. It's been quite a while, frankly, since somebody's wanted to play me on Hearthstone. It was definitely a factor that makes me wonder if people are dying or losing interest in Hearthstone. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. Action RPG The King of Fighters All-Stars has been announced for smartphones. I don't know like how you're gonna have great experience playing a fighting game on cell phones, but I guess it's not a fighting game. It's called The King of Fighting All-Stars, and it's an action RPG. And I could see playing an action RPG, I guess. Let's continuously draw cards.
Give that minion a turn to get ready.
And I just looked at that entire trailer and it doesn't actually show actual gameplay. That's one of those trailers. It's a mobile action RPG with easy to use controls that enables flashy skill actions and exciting combo actions of the King of Fighters series. I will be very interested to see if this game, when this game comes out on June 15th, I assume only in Japan, what it actually looks like, because it certainly seems like you are promoting and selling something on a platform that cannot support what you're promoting or selling. Like, I just don't see how that is going to be a fast experience. Next game we have on Steam is called Rise of the Crustaceans. I believe this was one of the bad games that Screen 7 was pointing out that coming out today. It actually did come out. I think inherently that is another issue, is that people see games like the active shooter game scheduled to come out, and then they freak out before they wait to see if they ever actually get released, because I don't think Steam looks at games until their actual release date. Or very possibly there's some behind the scenes stuff going on where they look at games as they're submitted. They say, as long as this doesn't actually get released, we won't look at it. Or they say, we'll look at the game once you give us the file, and the file is uploaded, say, the night before the release date a lot of times. Just to make sure there's no bait and switch happening. I could be very surprised at that. Rise of the Crustaceans is a ugly looking, looks like an asset flip top-down shooter. Doesn't seem like there's anything inherently offensive about it. Let's see. Unless there's something in the audio, I suppose there's always a possibility. It's early access, $3.99, and there's just nothing too bad about it for it to really have been one of the games that Screen 7 was pointing out. It's also from a developer who's self-publishing and has not done anything else. So, unlike some of the other developers who have flooded Steam with terrible games, Rise of Crustaceans should be left alone. Because frankly, just people don't want to see it. You elevated it and platformed it, and I'm certainly not a fan of the idea of deplatforming people, but you talked about a bad game, or Screen 7 did, that honestly nobody would have ever seen otherwise.
For the wild.
Let's get rid of as many of these as we can. Next game we have on Steam is called Project Maize. It's a asset flip of running around the 3D world with a maze that actually doesn't look that bad. Like, there is somebody in the maze who's trying to shoot you, or several people trying to shoot you, but you don't have a gun in your hand, so you are just running through the maze trying to figure it out in a 3D environment, which doing a maze in a 3D environment is certainly certainly a different experience. I think I need to play more of the big ticket cards to get my daily quest done. There are some different skins for this maze area, so maybe some different levels. 25% off for $3.74. Apparently this was a Steam Greenlight game, and that says something too if you've been working on your game as a Steam Greenlight game for so long. Let's see. The negative review, one negative review says, too long, didn't read. Game looks very bland. Everything is the same. The mazes are very big. I couldn't find the exit once in my time playing. You can't actually build a maze, just a random seed. Playing against the enemies is quite irritating, as I don't even know what their objective is in this. Also, they shoot through walls. After all, it's just not fun. What you can really see on my time playing. Not recommended yet. Will change my review if the game changes as well. I don't see a reason why you need to change your review. Like, you're reviewing everything. Every reviewer reviews the game as they see it. That being said, I'm not going to recommend Project Maize, but it's nowhere as bad as some of the other games I've seen. And it's...
I appreciate your efforts.
Let's see.
Time waits for no one.
Just keep playing. Like, again, a bad game, certainly, but not a game deserving scorn. Next game we have on Steam is called Bunker Punks, which I think this game was already covered. At least they're claiming that it was covered on the trailer by Jim Sterling and several other people. So it's a very 8-bit Doom-esque world where you're running around and shooting and you're trying to get bullets and collectibles. If I don't think I'm right here, but I felt like there was some games, this game had some element to it where you had a limited number of bullets. Alright, so this guy is doing battle in play mode. And I would have to wait for them to return to the main menu. And I can't spectate them either. So it's not really realistic for me to sit here and wait for this. Bunker Punks actually doesn't catch my attention because of its visual style for what it is, a fast-paced looking Doom game. It's 15% off for $12.74. Reviews, it has 173 review positive and 20 negative. So let's see. It's kind of a first-person shooter and a roguelike, but the not recommended says it has boring weapon selection, levels all look the same, uninteresting enemy sprites, setting and story and background, or just background filter, ads displayed on the walls to hammer how evil the corporation are. The base game is just spending cash on the room to upgrade stats in a linear fashion. Starting the game with grinding is not a good idea. Most of the game is content is locked at the beginning and the enemies won't drop anything new on your first playthrough. So yeah, I remember people talking about this, but this hardly was a game that people were shouting the praises of, and it's really strange that it's taken them this long to release it out of early access. The rating, if you just go on the main rating, it says it's very positive. 87% of the reviews are positive. I think with their trailer saying thumbs up Jim Sterling is probably not a great review. Nowadays, half the people don't like Jim Sterling. Which, by the way, Jim Sterling did do a video about the active shooter game that allegedly is coming out on Steam. I bet it doesn't ever happen. Let's see. So, here we are. I'm going to close Bunker Punks. I have no interest in playing it. If somebody wants me to play a game like that, I would certainly, but it doesn't catch my attention. And I'm going to end this recording here. If in between the 30 seconds it takes me to end this recording and me starting the next recording, this player becomes free, I'll try to give him a 1 versus 1 gameplay. Otherwise, we're just going to play some more minions that are expensive and be done with the European account and then move over to the American account, which I don't even need to get all 3 of the daily quests done. We'll be back on Wednesday, almost certainly. So yeah, we're planning to be back on Wednesday. So that wouldn't really matter. Anyways, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. When you subscribe, click the notification bell. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, gift me a game on Steam, or gift me a gift card on Steam. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.